Hi guys, in this video we're going to go over stages of the writing process very briefly, which is kind of like chapter 1 for most English classes, regardless whether you're in 101 or 102. And most importantly, I will show you the example of real work of a student and how it should be revised in order to get a good draft. Okay, so first and foremost, here's her work, but before we get to that, I want to tell you about stages of the writing process. Whether you realize it or not, you already engaged yourself in pre-writing. By the way, you don't need to take notes on this, you can just listen. It's fairly self-explanatory. Pre-writing is when I told you to think about your topics, and then you chose your topic, and then you thought, what do you already know about the topic? And then maybe perhaps you even went into Academic Search Complete and found yourself a nice little source that you would like to work with. If you have no idea what Academic Search Complete is, then you need to go back and watch a video on where to find sources. All right. After that, we began doing some writing. This is when you are doing your thesis statement and possibly beginning to write your rough draft. So that's the kind of stage that we are going to work on today. A couple of other things are editing and revising. They're going to go hand in hand. And the last stage is when you turn it in, or if you're writing a book, for example, or a blog, then you're actually doing publishing of your writing. In this case, you just submit to your teacher for grading. So as of right now, we are somewhere over here in writing, editing, revising, and this is what I want to show you today. Actually going to go ahead and delete it. And we're going to go over here. So at the beginning of your paper, you should include your name, either last name first or first last, I don't really care. Just put your name at the top, English 101. If you include in English 102, you will say English 102. Then you'll put your teacher's name, in this case, Ms. Shemansky, and then the date. And typically I would tell students to put their date that it's due. And that should be the top left corner. In theory, this actually should be single spaced. The rest of your paper should be double spaced, but this section should be single spaced. However, there is something wrong with my Word on my laptop, and I cannot actually access my spacing that I can tell. And well, maybe I can. So I guess technically it should look like this. All right, just learned something new. It's just that on school computers for paragraph and all this other stuff, there'll be like a tiny little invisible, but actually visible little square. So I'm starting to get confused. Later, we're going to have to figure out how to do hanging feature, because without it, we can't do proper references page. But we will worry about that later in life. So also, you need to insert page numbers. Let me, I don't know. Okay, so right here, you should be able to have a page number. Again, I'm seriously questioning my word processing. I don't think I can do this. So I'm just going to say cancel. Typically, what you would do is you would go to insert, then you have an option of page numbers. You want to choose ones that are top right corner. I think there are several options. Choose the one that looks pretty to you. As long as they appear in the top right corner, that's all I care about. And ideally, you would add your last name to that. You just kind of double click on the number and you can manipulate it that way. Now, this is not something I will take off points for. The point of this is, I have mixed feelings about it, because all this is still the standards that come from the days when people had to type on a typewriter and use paper clips to hold their papers together. So if the teacher dropped all your papers and needed to put it back together, it would be essential to have page number and your last name on each page number on that paper. Obviously, this is not going to happen in the modern world, so I'm lenient with that. But I do like to tell students how to do this, because you may go to another class where the teacher will be very, very picky with it. and may want to enforce that, and you will lose points. So it's my job to teach you how to do this properly. So the rest of your paper will be double spaced. Now, the student actually did a great job because I only asked her, literally, she only had to submit this and maybe just brief outline. She only had to submit this. And she did a lot more. So when I criticize and revise it, that's not to say that the student did a poor job. It's just to show you how it could be made better. Now, let's begin over here. So this is her introduction. Human microchipping is her topic, and she says it's a very interesting topic. Technically, there is nothing wrong with saying interesting topic, but you can upgrade your writing if you use things like controversial topic, fascinating topic, make it a little bit spicier rather than just bland, interesting. Then she says that there are arguable points made from both sides. And she says that microchip is just, inserted under your skin. And typically we would require more background here. So another source that would give us a little bit more about the topic, like 1 or 2 sentences. However, in this case, it being a response paper, you're only working with one source. It's a warm-up paper. Therefore, the student is completely correct over here. I'm not going to ask her to add anything else. From what you should remember, I said about the thesis statement, it's missing one component. It's missing author's last name. And I'm sure you see that. She did give me the title. She did give me the points, but there's no author. However, after I looked it up in the Academic Search Complete, I realized that there is no author. So she actually did okay. So I need to go back and tell her that. So there is no author. However, if you are writing an essay that there is actually an author, but he wasn't credited with, so we'll have to brainstorm with her how we want to approach that. But if you do have an author, most of you, so be sure to mention author's last name and first name as well in your thesis statement. Now, in order to test your thesis statement for this paper or any other paper in the world that you ever write in your life, thesis statement is good if you can take it out of the paper and it will contain everything you need to know. And if you're an outsider who has never read the original source or doesn't even know what the assignment is, that by looking at your thesis statement, they will be able to tell what it's going to be about, what is this in response to, and so forth. So it's like a skeleton. And the crucial thing is that it's 1 sentence long. So sometimes it's a very long sentence, and that's okay. But just you can always test it. Did I put enough information in my thesis statement by removing it and then seeing if I didn't have the background knowledge, would I be able to tell what this is about? Now, I did some revisions here in blue in the next paragraph. She just said the author states in the original. She said her first sentence was the author states. That was a little bit too fast. So she should probably say the first point author brings up is that it would be very convenient to have microchip implanted. Then you follow up with the quote. He or she states at the bank or grocery store, you could receive funds or buy provisions without ever having to reach for a wallet or purse. She did not mention the source, so I'm adding it here in blue. And typically, what you would do is, let's pretend your author's last name is Smith. And I already looked it up in Academic Search Complete that the year of publication for the source was 1999. Okay, so it would look like this. Now, this is just an example. Okay, Smith is not the actual name. Smith is a fake name that I made up for the purposes of the example. She is actually in the position where she does not have the author's last name. It's debatable. So we are going to use the title of the article. And the title is Microchip Implants Closer to Reality. Okay, so that's our title. If I don't have the author's last name, I will just use author's title, comma, year of publication. Microchip implants closer to reality is rather long, so it would actually be completely acceptable to add these 3 dots, not commas, Mishinsky, okay? 3 dots, and that means I have shortened the title. Personally, it really irks me because I feel like the title should be in italics or quotation marks. It's just really bugging me right now, but this is what Academic Search Complete told me. So I'm going to copy it exactly like that because that's how I'm going to require students to do it. Therefore, I need to get over this. All right. Then she says, I agree with this because it is more convenient and safer. I agree with this. She needs a comma here. She doesn't know about it. And the reason for that is you have I agree, you have your subject and your verb agree. I think it's pronoun. I always say subject, verb, but really it should be noun, verb. So you have your noun, I, and you have your verb. And then it is another, and you again have a noun and a verb. So if they both have 2 family members at home, they need to be separated by a comma. They're independent because it is more convenient and safer. Ideally, she would say it's more convenient and safer. What we typically look for is parallel structures, which means more convenient and more safe. Something like that. It doesn't really sound beautiful, and most likely the student will paraphrase this later on anyway, because I need a little bit more of elaboration on this. It's kind of self-explanatory, but she could possibly add another quote and elaborate a little bit more. She says you cannot lose an implant like you can a wallet or purse. Now, as far as like is concerned, not a very good word choice, so I'm going to cross it out. Avoid saying like in your papers as much as possible. What you should do instead is paraphrase it. You cannot lose an implant as you would a wallet or purse. Okay, this is how I would paraphrase it. As you would. Okay, I messed up on colors, but it's okay. As you would a wallet or purse. Okay, so you could also say as, instead of like, you can say as. You can paraphrase the entire sentence, but always avoid saying like. There are very few cases when like is like, you know, like whatever, like. There are very few cases when you actually need like to use like when it literally means like. And then that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. However, in this sentence, it's very easy to paraphrase it. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that she says, I agree, okay? You probably heard in your other English classes to never ever use I. Well, for 90% of the time, it is actually true. We do not need to use I. However, considering this is a response paper where I'm asking you to tell me what you think, it is appropriate to say I. And our textbook that I do not require, but if I did, you would read in the chapter 1 that, in chapter 2, is that always ask your teacher, because it is subject to change. It's one of those vague things. So the reason you were told to avoid I is correct. It's because it will make your writing more beautiful. Instead of I agree, you could say it would be convenient, or it would work better because. So you could paraphrase I. It would be fine to do that. However, I would not penalize the student for that, considering the fact that this is a response paper. Now, she labeled the paragraphs for me, which was convenient. That was completely fine. But now that I'm changing it into a paper, I'm going to remove those labels and do it like this. All right. So I'm going back to her thesis statement, and I want to make sure everything is in the correct order. So she says the microchips can help by making purchases at the store. They could put off distress signal if the person was injured or the chip was removed. So I expect that the second one is about distress signal of the person or the chip removed. She doesn't need this comma here. All right, so here she states, the author states, she gives us a good topic sentence However, okay, well, let me do that. It's, I think, blatantly obvious to you that something is missing in this paragraph. First of all, it's only 2 sentences long. Typically, a paragraph would be 5 sentences long minimum. The reason it's short is because this is more like an outline where she just sketched it. She does know better that to do it differently. So again, I don't want to say as if she did something wrong. This was just a sketch. So this is where you would, again, insert another quote, document where it came from, which would be identical, title and the year of publication, exactly as it was before. And then she would elaborate a little bit on that. This is a good point, needs a comma, because if the person fell and got injured in a remote location, they could not call for help. Obviously, it's going to be not themselves, it's going to be him, herself. The chip would be beneficial. Okay, she will elaborate here, so that's good. Finally, the author discusses how having a medical record accessible through the chip could be helpful. So I did look at the original article on Academic Search Complete. I do kind of look at them so that I can verify that you've done everything correctly. And some of them I actually have memorized because students write the same paper topics and use same sources more or less. So I will go into Academic Search Complete and look at it, actually. So just be aware of that. You don't need to include it with your paper. I will go look at it myself. So through could be helpful, points out. So here she did a great job in the paragraph because she did elaborate. She gave us a quote, author points out. Again, nothing wrong with comma, technically correct, but semicolon is even better. Or is it colon? The 2 dots. Guys, this is just like, I always blank out on this. I meant colon. Emergency room computers would automatically identify you and access your medical records the moment your gurney came through the door. Excellent quote. Very good choice. Again, this here is crucial that she actually adds the source. Microchip implants, dot, dot, dot. I'm shortening the title, 1999. And this is most important thing of the entire video. The period goes over here because this is the end of the sentence. It goes after the parentheses. If the quote was the end of it, you would put it inside the quote. But remember, there's no period over here. This is something I take off points for. It goes at the end of the sentence. So then she says, I agree with this. Again, we could paraphrase, I agree with this because if the person is unable to give information, like if they are, obviously, you already know what to do here. Ms. Shimensky doesn't like it. She would paraphrase that. This could help them get good quality medical care in a timely manner. Okay, this is okay paragraph. For a response paper, it's first paper, it's a warm-up, it's good enough. All right, so the only thing is when I looked at the original article, the author also very briefly, but kind of brought up privacy issues of the microchip. And I thought that was very interesting because if she added that to her paper, it would make it stronger. So I suggested that she would substitute her second point or third point for the privacy issue rather than medical. And again, it's up to her. She doesn't have to do it, but I thought it was interesting because it was more there to elaborate. They speculated as to what will happen. They referred to George Orwellian. When you have like a slippery slope, if we do this will happen. The government can track us. And now, if you have microchip, your boss knows when you go to the bathroom and everybody can spy on you. They know where you are in your house. Kind of reminds me of contact tracing with cell phones. People want to be safe, that's nice, but at the same time, it's a little bit odd how we're being spied on through the cell phones. So not everybody's thrilled about, I don't think microchip technology is not as great as the authors make it out to be. And especially my student, I think it would be more balanced. But then again, it's her response in her paper and she doesn't have to do it if she doesn't want to. Couple more things here. Since I said the first point, it would be nice to tell here the second point author discusses is, since I already said first, here it would make sense to say second. And then here she has a choice to say third, or she can say finally, okay? Probably it would be better to say third here so that it's not confused with conclusion to some degree, because here's our conclusion coming up. All right. In conclusion, I agree with the points the author makes regarding the use of chips for purchasing items in store, sending distressed. Okay. Here she could probably add a couple of more concluding remarks. One thing that I would say is that the article is published in 1999, so that's 20 years ago. The microchip technology idea is not new. I mean, we're hearing about it, but this is not new, and it's still not kind of on the market. It's already used in China, I think, almost, but it's not really in the United States yet. So this is something that she could throw in if she wanted to make the conclusion a little bit more interesting. Okay, I'm glad I'm wearing headphones because I think people came to mow grass, of course, because I'm recording. All right, I scrolled down and I'm just so thrilled because she did, in fact, include her references. References will come on a separate page, so I already, okay, I think I'm having trouble, but be sure to put it in a separate page. So references, she did go to Academic Search Complete and looks like she cut and pasted everything correctly. So microchip implants, here's the title, year of publication, so that's the info that we already used for references. It was published in a journal called Futurist, and anybody who knows APA knows what these numbers mean, is that it's issue, volume, page number, and so forth. So because it's a one source essay, you only have one source and you don't have to worry about much, and it's also rather short. In the future, you will have two things in your references, 2 items in your references. You will have 6 and 8, and please kind of remember it right now when I tell you this, that they will have to be in alphabetical order. And you will alphabetize them either by the author's last name, because it's the last name that you should use, and by the first letter of the title if the author's name is missing. We'll kind of rehearse that over and over again, but just kind of make a mental note for yourself. Also, in the future, we will actually be using a hanging feature. Hanging feature is one thing that's missing in Academic Search Complete. I'm very perplexed by that. Sometimes it appears, sometimes it does not. I think it actually does appear, but it's single space. So you will need to double space. After you cut and paste, you will need to double space it and preserve that hanging feature, but you'll probably have to create your own because it's going to rearrange the words. And usually hanging feature is done through paragraph. Let me look here. I don't know, I'm not finding anything. I'll have to research how to do the hanging, that's incorrect. I'll have to research how to do the hanging feature because I'm used to doing it in class on a school computer, and sometimes I'll figure it out. If you figure it out before me, please let me know, okay? All right, so these are just like brief revisions, brief revisions of a student paper. If you have any questions, you can always ask me. The key is that if you're worried about your rough draft, what you can do is take advantage of free tutoring that we offer. I can either refer you to a specific tutor depending on the class you're in, or I will just send you to the tutoring center and they'll look over your draft. It will take 10-15 minutes online and they'll give you feedback similar to what I'm giving you right now, okay? So any questions, you can get a hold of me as usual or ask me in class. If we are a hybrid who do meet in class, if we don't, we'll just, if you're my online class, then you'll just have to email me. Take care.